This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Hello, Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been 3 weeks now that a grand jury has been working on what could be an indictment with major implications. We will examine the latest. On the lakefront, University of New Orleans officials have been evaluating the decline in registration numbers, and that verdict isn't good. One number that is surprisingly increasing is local COVID cases, and we will report on the latest of that. And we will look at progress in establishing new passenger train service, plus who's in line for this fall's congressional races, as well as the latest on an oil spill in Bayou Lafourche. Joining us are tonight's Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Greg LaRose, editor, the Louisiana Illuminator, Don Ostrom, Channel 12's Future Watch reporter, and Marie Fazio, staff writer of the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. Go to Greg first, because first in terms of the indictment, federal indictments, why don't you explain what we could be hearing about?
We're waiting, still waiting to see if the grand jury hands down an indictment against New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell. Of course, we know that part of her protective team, Officer Jeffrey Vappy, former officer, has been indicted for falsifying his payroll records and lying to investigators about his time spent with the mayor. The mayor's held steadfast and said that is, not a personal relationship. She's, conceded no wrongdoing. My 2 cents for what it's worth. I think if this indictment would have been simply to deal with what Vappy was charged with, it would have come down against the mayor by now, just based on how I've seen linked indictments, linked investigations go down. Keeping in mind that a few months back, and we should credit our friends at WWL TV for reporting this, federal investigators had talked to folks tied into the permits department, the IECI inspection firm, and its owner allegedly provided some Saints football tickets to the mayor, allegedly, in exchange for firing someone from the city planning department that had been raising questions about whether or not that permitting inspection firm was, perhaps not doing its job. So speculation, maybe that's, the ducks are being lined up in a row by prosecutors, by investigators for that. Again, I don't think it's just confined to Vappy, just based on the amount of time it's taking.
Okay, I guess we shall wait and see, which will be forthcoming, if anything. Okay, but what we know definitely did happen is an oil spill on Bayou Lafourche, which was really heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, it is. I got a tour with Parish President Archie Chasson, and the area that's affected is between Raceland and Lockport. And at the onset, it was really looking bad. You had like a good miles-long streak of oil on top of the bayou, covering plants. And having been down there this morning in that affected area, it's definitely getting better. But officials, Chasson and others, admit there's still quite a bit of work to be done. To the extent that they can skim oil off the water, they're going to continue doing that. They're going to try and, at the spill site, continue washing it off of the vegetation with hopes of capturing it. But I think they're going to reach a point where there's only so much they can do to take it off the plants, and they'll hope that over time it's going to biodegrade, become less harmful. The water's safe. They've been testing it from the get-go.
That's a drinking water source.
Drinking water, yes. Yeah. They still have boat traffic closed on that 8-mile stretch, which really only inconveniences the fishermen, recreational boaters and such. We did see one shrimp boat on the bayou, and that owner, we're told, wants to get out on the water for Monday, the start of white shrimp season. So the cleanup crew is going to go and clean off his boat so he can get out of there. And he's not going to be back for months since the season's months long. So yeah, they are accommodating folks and asking everyone, go to the Lafourche Parish Government Facebook site. That's where they're posting all the information, including the numbers where you can report any damage to personal property, or if you're feeling ill or such, as well as they want you to call and find if you find oiled wildlife.
How did this happen? Where did it come from?
This is at a facility, a small facility in Raceland, owned by Crescent Midstream. Crescent Midstream owns a pipeline, two pipelines, well, lots of pipelines, but the two in question start below Grand Isle in the Gulf, and they take oil up to Raceland, and basically they're sort of like there's some separation that takes place, and they send it to points north, including the St. James Oil Terminal. From there, it's sort of just a big hub that goes out to a number of customers, and it also goes to the Exxon Mobil refinery in Baton Rouge. And I know there's some concern from the company Crescent Midstream that I should say that these two pipelines have been shut down since the spill.
And which started when?
That was Saturday morning.
Okay.
So almost a week.
Almost a week.
Likely it's going to extend into next week, that they keep these shut down while the investigation takes place into what caused this. And I think there's some business concerns that, this pent up oil not getting to the refineries. Obviously, Crescent Midstream wants to turn on the spigot. Don't know if there'll be a ripple effect yet for the refineries and ultimately those of us who, use the fuel that comes out of those refineries.
So this wasn't a problem with the pipeline per se, right?
No, the Crescent Midstream is saying the pipes they've inspected are fine. It looks like they're calling it operator error. Someone left a valve open in the facility in Raceland. Normally it's closed off when they pipe oil into it. Someone left it open. That oil spilled out, flowed into a drainage ditch that made its way into the bayou. Lots of it.
Is this a common occurrence on the bayou?
We're looking into that. These obviously all have to be reported. The Bayou Lafourche spill, clearly it was visible. Someone noticed. And this was a lot of oil, 34,000 gallons.
Yeah.
That's like 820 barrels. So it wasn't like anyone could kind of hide that, nor did anyone attempt to hide it. But we would think that, that's a well-traveled waterway. People see it. Where else has this happened that's not so apparent?
Yeah.
That's a story we'll be working on in weeks to come.
And what about critters up and down the bayou?
Yeah, the count is 21 dead, and they are really kind of fine-tooth combing it. A lot of this was up by the facility from the drainage ditches, the little bayou salamanders that you see crawling everywhere. I want to say there's like one crawfish.
One crawfish.
One lone crawfish.
Yeah.
The crawfish will survive. I think a couple turtles, but they have recovered an oil-covered alligator and a couple of oil-covered ducks, both of which, well, I didn't see those actual ones, but on our tour with the president, we saw an alligator seem to be fine, a little family of cute, adorable ducks.
And
they seem to be okay.
Any odor from this? Can you smell it?
This morning only when you were right over the biggest concentrations where the booms are. So they've got what they call J booms, and you can picture it as the water flows down. They get caught the oil gets caught along with any vegetation at the bottom of the J. So that's where you saw the big black pools of oil, and you could smell it the strongest there. Only a light sheen was the worst I saw, but you can clearly see the water marks, or I should say the oil marks, at the high mark of where it's been. And that, again, I think it's just going to have to biodegrade over time.
Oh, it's hard to think of it. Such a pretty area.
It's
such a
heartbreaking,
beautiful area.
yeah.
Yeah, it really, really is. All right, Greg, thanks a lot. E, over to you. Congressional race qualifying.
Yeah, there's 6 congressional districts. Of those 6 congressional districts, there are 2 districts that you could say the race is of interest, though in no case is the outcome in doubt, okay? One would be the 4th congressional district, which is upstate in Shreveport area. The people in Shreveport, the Shreveport area, are the only people in the country who get to vote for the Speaker of the House for Congress, because that is Mike Johnson's district. No problem is being elected. He has only minor opposition, but it's just get a little bit of more national attention. The other district is the 6th congressional district. That's the Baton Rouge area. This is the result of all of the contentious lawsuits to have another black majority district. And this area was determined to be that district. Garrett Graves was the member of Congress. He decided not to run. He could just count votes. The district was designed to be a black majority. He's not black. Okay? The people who are running for the seat are, and the one's going to be Cleo Fields, who's a former congressman, from that district. He only has one opponent, a minor opponent, a guy named Albert Guidry, who's a former state senator, kind of a perennial candidate. But this is Cleo Fields, and so Louisiana's going to return 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats, as opposed to 5 Republicans and 1 Democrat. So those things are pretty well determined. It's amazing, though, for a small congressional district to think that you have the Speaker of the House and the House Majority Leader at one end of the state. And so that's pretty impressive.
Right, there definitely is. So those races will be on the November ballot, right?
They'll all be on the November ballot. There'll be no runoff. I mean, they're going to all be decided early.
All righty, thanks a lot. Marie, let's go on over to you.
Sure.
And you did a piece about the University of New Orleans. Its enrollment is down, to say the least.
Yes, to say the least. So if you're looking at long-term trends, in 2003, 2004, enrollment was about 17,000 at the university, and last fall it was only about 6,200. And this is a long-time issue, stemming back from funding cuts under the Jindal administration. COVID didn't do any urban serving research institutions any favors. The University of New Orleans got a new president last fall, Kathy Johnson, so she kind of took on this major mountain of a problem. So she's tackling it a bunch of different ways. They are going to have to slash budgets by 15% overall. It's looking like each school is going to cut by about 15% and the athletic department by 25%. And that's going to look different, I think, program to program, but they did also decommission Milneberg Hall, which is used for a variety of things, and those departments will be shifted elsewhere on campus. And then they are eliminating about 70 positions, and fortunately about 62 of those were unfilled, and they're going to remain unfilled. So there were a handful of layoffs, but not as many as many faculty members and staff members feared initially.
Of course, UNO, which was established as LSUNO, it's near and dear to the hearts of so many of us. We're alums. Me, Errol is. So many folks had the chance to get a college education because of the existence of LSUNO, and we've watched it grow over the years, as you said, to the point of 17,000. Then, of course, after Katrina, that really was also a hit
What
for
they've always
us.
said about the university, and it's true, is that it gave New Orleans a middle class.
Yes.
There was a small but very pronounced upper class and a large underclass financially, but the middle class really didn't have. There wasn't an urban university, or there wasn't a public university in the New Orleans area. So you either had to go out of the city, out of the area, go to a private school. And so New Orleans, until 1958, didn't have a public university.
That's right. And UNO, LSUNO at the time, and then ultimately University of New Orleans really provided that opportunity. It's really helped this community, it helped so many individuals. So we don't know of any actual programs of study being cut back right now, such as at Milneberg, that's being closed, and some of the departments like political science and urban studies, those are just relocating. They're not being cut necessarily.
Correct, yes, just relocating. The other thing to watch, though, is that the Board of Regents, which oversees all the public universities in the state, was told by the Landry administration that most likely in the next fiscal year, there's going to be a budget deficit of about $250 million. So more cuts could be coming. Even if UNO does align its budget, this could impact universities statewide.
And that would be public universities across the board if that
Correct.
indeed does happen. Of course, we're seeing a change in higher education too, and perhaps a drop in numbers. The pandemic certainly impacted, and the way college education is now delivered too is different.
There's also expected to be a decrease in college students starting with children who were born in 2008 because there was a drop in births when we were in a financial crisis then. So the colleges are getting ready to see lower enrollment nationwide.
And then also there's the concern of college costs. But of course, UNO was always looked upon as having, really an opportunity for stellar education at a reasonable cost.
It's much more affordable than many other options, and I think it Kathy Johnson said that she received an outpouring of support after news organizations wrote about their budget cuts, and just from people all over the city who received a good education from UNO, and it caters to such a diverse array of learners and really plays an important role in the city.
So is she saying she's sort of changing her focus a little bit to try to attract a different group of potential students down the line?
I think UNO has always attracted, the college student who maybe has a full-time job and takes classes on the side, or is older and returning to college, but definitely refocusing on those groups, focusing on international students. They had a couple international groups tour the campus this summer. They're really trying to bring young children, young students onto campus for summer camp, stuff like that, so they can see this university is here in the city and provides a good education, kind of starting that early.
So the fall semester, what is she anticipating? Is it going to continue to decline, does she think, or perhaps maybe we'll see a little bit of a boost?
They were hopeful about fall numbers. She said that they are anticipating a much larger fall class this year, so they're hopeful. We'll see what plays out with that.
There's a challenge, and bless them, but there's a challenge that commuter colleges have. Once you know that, it's not the same experience as going to a big college and partying after class all the time. I mean, most of the people, they go there, they leave, they go to work someday, and they come back and forth. It's not the same kind of college experience, even though it's always been a good educational experience.
Yeah.
It hasn't had that, that joy of life sort of feeling that the other universities have.
Well, I think that UNO caters to students who maybe aren't necessarily drawn to that. We saw last year they tried to institute a football program, which would have seen the increase in student fees, and students overwhelmingly have rejected that idea. So I think that there is a student who maybe they're happy with the way things are. They don't really need that four-year big LSU state school feel.
Well, yeah, there's a student that needs that kind of university, but there's a lot of them that maybe looking for something more.
A lot of the programs at UNO too can place graduates right into jobs, and that I think is a real selling card for the university.
Well, we wish the best for UNO, and as Errol called it, a commuter college. That's what it was considered to be in its early days as LSU UNO, and then it sort of changed into what's called an urban university. But in fact, it is a commuter college.
But even
It
from its
still
early
has
days,
nice
nobody ever
dorms.
said that it's not a good university. I mean, it came out the gate with a reputation. I mean, this place is
that's
serious, so.
Yeah, it was, in those early years, it was very difficult, easy to flunk out over there.
Did we say that you were the first Miss LSU?
Oh, and the only, because they decided, no, this wasn't the thing to do.
Oh, no, come on.
And that's eons ago, another
Miss
lifetime.
LSU, no, okay.
All righty. All right, Marie, thanks a lot. All right, Don, over to you. COVID.
It's
And
real.
it caught you.
It caught
also.
me. That's why I was not here 2 weeks ago. You would not have wanted me to be anywhere near any of you. There is a surge. We wouldn't call it a spike necessarily, but if you've watched the numbers over the last 5 years, and it's kind of almost unfathomable that we're talking about 5 seasons of COVID already, but there are peaks and valleys, and there are times when we surge, and we tend to see surges, especially here, in both the winter and the summer. When we're in the summer surge, where positivity rates statewide are at about 15% of all people taking tests. And those are just people, I truly had COVID, but I took tests at home. Nobody in the state was reported the fact that I had COVID. There are probably plenty of people like me where it's not recorded anywhere. It's not in any data. It is definitely going around. The variant that's going around now is an Omicron, if you remember that variant from before. It's an Omicron subvariant called KP.3. That's the one that's most prevalent right now, although there's another one out there called Flirt. With all of these subvariants, the vaccines become less effective. The vaccines that people have gotten are less effective because they're designed for the variants that we know about. Unlike the flu, which has a season that is kind of predictable based on what happens in the southern hemisphere, COVID doesn't seem to have a season that's predictable anymore. So even timing of vaccines is a little rough. With a flu vaccine, you can say, well, flu's starting to get prevalent. It's time to get that vaccine because the vaccines are most effective shortly after you've gotten them. They wear off and wear off and wear off. We're at a point now where they say, or doctors say, you should be getting a yearly vaccine. They're getting close to a vaccine that is a combination flu and COVID vaccine. They're not there yet. Currently, the vaccine is about 50% effective against the emerging variants. And the biggest thing it's effective against is really bad disease. So you might still get COVID, or you might still get the flu when you get a flu shot, but you're hopefully not going to end up hospitalized. If you look at the data in the Louisiana Department of Health, the positive cases are way, way up. But deaths definitely are not up right now.
Well, that's
and
good.
hospitalizations are up only a little bit. Some of the reason behind where these surges are coming from is it's hot, and it's not just hot here. People are inside. In the vast majority of America, people are choosing to be inside during the heat wave. So you're
Congregating
closer
together.
together, just like in the winter when people up north get sick because it's cold and they go inside. They're congregating together. The airport IT outage that hit a couple weeks ago, another reason where people were trapped and stuck together and just sharing their germs. We've gotten much worse as a society. You know, for a while we were being very polite. If you felt ill, you stayed home. You didn't go to work. You didn't go to school. You didn't go out with your friends. Some people seem to have forgotten that. We weren't shaking hands. We were being more careful. People were masked. All the things that can prevent illness spreading, we've kind of fallen away from doing.
It's become politicized as well.
Yeah,
And
some people say it doesn't really exist anymore. I can tell you hands down it definitely exists.
Because
and
you were really ill this time.
you know, I never felt the need to go to the hospital or even the doctor, but I spent 2.5 days in bed, and anybody who knows me well knows that that's not the kind of
Not
person
you.
I am.
Yeah.
I don't generally spend 2.5 hours sitting still anywhere, ever, much less 2.5 days. So it's not good. It causes major fever, lots of coughing, body aches. It's flu-like illness.
And so about the vaccines, are we going to see a different vaccine
We
coming out
will.
soon?
We should have a new vaccine coming out in about September, hoping to hit the new variants targeted well. Anybody over 65 and immunocompromised really is encouraged to get vaccines. The rest of us who don't fall in those categories, they encourage it, but it's not as crucial. I now have more antibodies than I'll get from having a vaccine, having just been ill with the virus. But the immunity continues to decline for people each month, either after a vaccine or having the illness. So watch the news when those vaccines come out and try to avail yourself of them.
Or we're going to have to go back to wearing the mask.
I think that's a really good political question
Yeah.
that doctors at this point in time aren't willing to address. Don't forget, there are medications available for people who do become very ill with it. There are two that are common right now. Paxlovid is one and molnupiravir is the other. Paxlovid is much more effective against it, but it does have some drug-to-drug interactions, so people have to check very carefully with doctors. But that one works really well if you get on these drugs within 5 days of your symptom onset to really help mitigate major problems for people who
And
might.
also maybe mitigate long COVID too.
Yes.
It could impact that. Okay, so this is just a virus that keeps changing shape. It won't go away.
It will not go away, and it's not just here. It's there's surges around the nation right now. And actually, I mean, if you're watching the Olympics at all, there are Olympic athletes who are testing positive, and and all those people from around the world who are gathered together and stir, mix, and head back home. There will be viruses that decide to travel home with people.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better and
Me
that you were
too.
able to join us around the table again. All right, Don, thanks a lot. Okay, E, there's a chance that we're going to see a Gulf Coast Railway return, passenger air. I mean, not
through
rail.
the years, there's been off and on service between New Orleans and the Gulf Coast. Nothing lasted, but I know some people remember growing up in New Orleans and every Friday taking the train to Bay St. Louis, where their family had a cottage or something. So it hasn't been a continuing thing, but there was a service between New Orleans and the Florida, then it connected into Miami at one point. It all ended after Katrina. But there's a group that's been really campaigning to get this service back, and it looks like it's happening. It's going to require the support of the three affected states, which are Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama. Louisiana and Mississippi have pretty much, they got to put up money, which is part of it. There's been more resistance from Alabama. One concern was that we have all these freight trains that run out of a Mobile, and a passenger train will slow down a freight train, and then the money and all of this. But it seems like they're coming around to it. I mean, it would be a good thing for Alabama, I would guess. I think it'd be best for Mississippi because they have the most destinations along the route. But they all seem to be coming in. Alabama still has to take a vote. It will be later this month, but all the important people say it's going to pass. The governor has been resistant to it in the past, and she seems to have bought into it. So I think it's going to happen. And it'll start in 2025. It'll be serviced 2 times a day each way going back and forth. It'll be operated by Amtrak, and they have nice new modern equipment out there. And so it's a good train, and it's a good route. One thing that came out, though, and I think this is a compromise with the Alabama people, is that the council is going to vote for it, but what they're doing is they're going to agree to a tax for 3 years, which essentially is an experimental period. It's a way of saying, let's see if this works. And I think that's ultimately swayed the people in Alabama, because you're putting a goal on this. But the Southern Rail Commission, which is a group that's been promoting this, seems to think that's going to work, that after 3 years, people are going to still want it.
Are they thinking of getting this up and running in time for the Super Bowl?
I doubt if you can make it in time for that, yeah, because that's pretty soon now.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. But
Yeah,
wow,
by the
wouldn't that
time
be
you
a
sell
great
it.
trip?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be. It's going to be the kind of thing you buy tickets for 6 months ahead of time, that sort of thing. So it'd be a good thing.
So we'll see. So it would be from Union Passenger Terminal for us, for New Orleans over to Mobile.
Yeah, and all the funding also includes with building little depots and stations along the route.
Along the route, that's great.
So.
Okay, we'll see.
By the way, New
Hopefully-
Orleans is a great train station. If you've never been there a long time, go walk around it. You'll be really impressed.
Right, okay. We'll have to do that. Okay, Ian, other stories.
Okay, the people may be remembering this place on the Parish line between Jefferson and New Orleans called the Parish Line, which has been like a restaurant boutique. Well, they announced today that it's closing, that it's a new place that's, coming off course, called Bar Stop.
Bar car.
Bar car, yeah, just like the trains.
Yeah. Bar car, yeah, which is named in honor of the old trains that used to have a bar car. And it's going to be a place that's supposed to be a more hip and more fun sort of
Okay,
place.
all
And
right.
so Parish Line being replaced by Bar car.
Bar car, all right. Who do you?
We're tracking the newest higher education leader at a Louisiana state school, Associate State Supreme Court Justice James Genovese, who, with no experience in higher ed, is essentially Governor Landry's hand-picked choice to lead that university. He and other justices, in fact, have just been approved for a stipend for that. It would seem we're looking into whether or not Genovese will take that stipend, even though he's leaving his job.
Okay, we'll be looking for that. Dawn.
Sticking on the medical front, the other thing to be watching out for circulating in our area right now is the West Nile virus. So do what you can to not get bit by mosquitoes.
Right.
That means wearing long sleeves and pants even in the hot weather, using bug spray, making sure you dump standing water around your
Right.
property, and avoiding dawn and dusk outside because the numbers are growing.
Yeah, all right.
And don't
Marie.
go to the West Nile.
Over to you, Marie.
New Orleans schools are having their first days this week and next and the following week. But of course, all eyes are on the Leah Chase School, which is the New Orleans' first permanent district-run school in about 2 decades. So, yeah, watching that.
Okay. All righty. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here around this table, and thank you all for watching, too. We'll see you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.